Hey you, and welcome to Happy Sex Ad. Okay, I need to wait. Hey you, and welcome to Happy Sex Ad. Today we are going to be watching a show that I've personally never seen, but it has been highly requested by two very special people of mine. Firstly, my love, Mila, and my very nice friend, Marton, who keeps sending me clips of the show. So it was about time. And if only you two watch this video, it will have been so worth it. And I'm really happy to do it today. By the way, yes, I am indeed wearing a blazer to look like the cool Sex and the City girls. I do really hope it's worth it because I am way too warm. And we are going to switch it up a little bit. Instead of watching the whole episode chronologically, because I've noticed that it doesn't make as much sense because it doesn't have like a very coherent storyline. We are more going to look at some themes and some questions that this show is raising, which are actually quite interesting and quite relevant. So let's start with the first theme, which is sex without feeling.
Look, if you're a successful sales woman in this city, you have two choices. You can bang your head against the wall and try and find a relationship, or you can say screw it and just go out and have sex like a man.
You mean with dildos?
No, I mean without feeling. This is the first time in the history of Manhattan that women have had as much money and power as men. Plus, the equal luxury of treating men like sex objects.
Yeah, except men in this city fail on both counts. I mean, they don't want to be in a relationship with you, but as soon as you only want them for sex, they don't like it.
Now the show shows something very interesting. It is women who pursue casual sex without any attachment and without any feeling in the way that men have been portrayed experiencing those things forever. This is really interesting. And I do think that in the end, to show those things and to show that women now have the same opportunities when it comes to pursuing their sexual pleasure is a good thing. While it is still true that women do have it harder to do so, because if you remember my previous video, do women like sex less than men do? You may remember that slut shaming, risk of physical harm, stigma, as well as a lack of negotiation are still big problems that women face. However, now they do have the opportunity to have sexual encounters, to have casual sex, and to be free in that way, which in itself is a good thing. And I also think that it's a good thing that this is shown on the big screen. This is quite new for the early 2000s, so I would say this in itself is a win.
Oh, Kurt.
Kurt was just like I remembered.
Yes.
Better.
Oh.
Because this time, there would be none of that messy emotional attachment.
Alrighty. My turn.
Oh, sorry. I have to go back to work.
However, in this case, I don't really want to compare women versus men, and I don't really want to go into the question that the show raises, which is, can women have sex in the same way that men do? I more want to look into whether or not sex without feeling is good for anyone. And if you ask me, it is not necessarily. So there is nothing at all wrong with having casual sex from time to time, or also with having some periods in your life where you have casual sex without a lot of emotions involved. However, I do think that it becomes a problem when you lose the ability to express yourself emotionally and vulnerably during sex. And this is something that I've talked about with my sexuality professor. And she said that this is a phenomenon that she keeps observing and that gets more and more, that young people feel like romance or feelings, emotions during sex are somehow disgusting or uncomfortable, and we don't want that, which probably comes from a fear of being hurt, but I do think that that is an important part of what makes us human. It has been shown by research that attachment, commitment, and romance is actually very healthy for us. It reduces stress and increases happy hormones. And having casual sex without ever, again, nothing wrong with casual sex, but having only casual sex and not even allowing the possibility that there will be a connection between sex and feelings, that is probably going to leave a person empty over time or with feelings of emptiness. However, this is the same for men and women. And it is a win that women can go out there and enjoy casual sex sometimes, just like men do. However, if we as a whole society lose the ability to connect sexuality to emotions, that is not a good thing. Something that I also want to mention, however, which I thought was very interesting, is that because of the way that relationships in this world function, the happiest demographics are actually single women and married men. And this has more reasons than I can mention here. Probably I could do a whole video about that. Maybe I will. However, women do much more of the emotional labor in relationships. They tend to be the ones who bring up problems and want to fix them. They tend to do more of the household, even though they have full-time jobs, just like their partners. So oftentimes, romantic relationships leave women exhausted, whereas men have a lot of benefits from them. This is interesting because following the reality, which is that single women and married men are the most happy, so this way it would make more sense for men to pursue marriage and children, whereas for women it would make more sense to pursue casual sex. Not saying that that is how it should be, but based on the facts, this would make more sense. However, this is not at all in line with how patriarchy tells women and men how they should be. Of course, it's still deeply ingrained that women should be pure, they should be at home, they should be not going out there, because that's not what girls do. So it is really interesting, no, to look at the facts versus the ideal of the patriarchy, which obviously portrays us a completely wrong picture of what makes women and men happy. The picture that men go out there and have a lot of sex and are super happy with that, and women stay at home with their kids and are super happy with that, is so deeply ingrained with us. But the opposite is true. It's the men that the marriage makes happy and the women that like to be single.
Thank you.
Do you know that it has been like a year?
Really? I don't understand that. You're such a nice guy.
That's the problem. You know, I'm too nice, you know? I'm a romantic. I just have so much feeling.
Are you sure you're not gay?
No. You know, I'm sensitive. And I don't objectify women.
Now, the next theme I want to talk about is, are nice guys undateable? It is actually portrayed in the show as if they are. Carrie's close guy friend is portrayed as a really nice person, and he's even questioned to be gay just because he's kind. Now, let's distinguish. This is, at least as from what I see in the first episode, this is not a guy who thinks he will get something in return for being nice. This is a guy who is generally kind, but somehow people keep wondering, is he too nice to be dateable? And his kindness is portrayed as very unattractive. Now, I do think that it's quite a problem that we keep seeing that men say, but women only want to date assholes, I'm just too kind of a guy. But if you look at the statistics, that's kind of bullshit. It is true that for short-term flings or one-night stands, that the kindness or the altruism of a man is not very relevant. However, when it comes to long-term bonding and relationships, the man's kindness is not only relevant but crucial for the success of the relationship. Let's please throw this idea that women like assholes out of the window, because it's just simply not true. Women prefer altruistic men even over attractive men. That is what the statistics say. So it is more important to be kind and caring than to be attractive. I do believe that a lot of the confusion stems from men who call themselves nice guys, but who expect something in return for their niceness, whether that is a romantic relationship or sex. That is not true kindness. That is transactional, and probably a lot of the women who say, oh, I hate those nice guys, what they really mean is, I hate those guys that use their kindness to get me into bed or onto a date or into a relationship. Now, it is a bit unfortunate that this guy is portrayed as so unattractive, because that is something that I do believe confuses men a lot. The macho, not very nice and caring men in shows tend to be portrayed as the more attractive ones and the more desirable ones, which gives men the very wrong and a very toxic idea, which contributes to this big divide between the genders and their expectations in relationships.
Happy birthday to
Another 30-something birthday with a group of unmarried female friends. We would all have preferred a nice celebratory conference call.
you were saying.
Now, the next really nice theme that I have observed is the theme of female friendship, especially a close group of female friends that have their backs and that support each other. And that is actually something that is incredibly relevant. Research has shown that the more time women spend with women, the more female friends they have, and the closer the groups are, the better their mental health and even their physical health. So portraying something like that, I think that's very nice. Also, it goes away from the idea that women are automatic competition to each other, which is unfortunately something we see a lot. And showing a supportive friend group is a really important and beautiful thing. Now, they're not perfect. It's not like there is no toxicity there, but overall, they are close, they have each other's back, and they love each other.
Tens of thousands of women like this in the city. We all know them, and we all agree they're great. They travel, they pay taxes, they'll spend $400 on a pair of Manolo Blahnik strappy sandals.
The last theme I want to talk about that I think is very relevant is materialism and capitalist feminism. If you look at the show, you will see that female independence and female freedom is portrayed as financial freedom. The women can afford their own apartments, they pay their taxes, they can afford expensive pairs of shoes, and this is kind of shown as as female liberation. Money. Let's look into this. So, patriarchy is a system that devalues all traits that are being coded as female. So being kind, nurturing, being emotional, empathetic, and careful with other people. However, those more male-coded traits, like being really tough, really rational, striving for things, all of those traits are being more male-coded and celebrated by patriarchy. But listen up, they're also celebrated by capitalism. Now, capitalism and patriarchy go hand in hand because capitalism sees the male-coded traits as the more valuable ones, because those are the traits with which you can make a lot of money. Now, if you look at capitalist feminism, it is basically women trying to fit into the system that was made for men, trying to make it in the system by making a lot of money, being really successful, and adapting those more male-coded traits while pushing those more female-coded traits down. Why is this a problem? Well, this is a problem because it leaves the system, which is patriarchy, untouched. Really important things like empathy, nurturing, care for others are getting lost if this system is not being questioned. But instead, everyone is trying to succeed in this system. This completely ignores the underlying problems that female people or people who are being read as female still face. If a woman tries to make it in patriarchy, because she's going to have it so much harder because she's naturally devalued in the system, this will probably cost her her health and may even lead to her having to give up some core values of her. And that is a problem. So instead of asking, can women make it just like men do? I do think we should rather be asking, why is the system built for men and men only in the first place? And shouldn't we make space for women, non-binary people, trans folks, and everyone else so that we all can contribute to the system with our unique traits? Now, this is obviously not to say that women are naturally only nurturing and caring and empathetic and men are naturally tough and rational. However, the female traits or the female coded traits are missing in the system, and they are so necessary to get to a healthy community and to a healthy world. And also men would benefit from not being reduced to their power and their strength and their rationality, but also to be encouraged to show their vulnerable side, so that we can all live with a little bit more peace and care for one another. Women will never be happy by hiding their needs. For example, women are told that if they want to succeed in the system, they have to hide their menstrual pain. They have to hide that they feel pain, that they sometimes are exhausted, because they have to work just like men do. And men have a completely different energy cycle than women do. This, by the way, is something that I do want to make a video on, the hidden pains of periods, because I think it is very overlooked. Now, thank you so much for hearing me chatter about all of these subjects. I have really enjoyed making this video. And yeah, I really hope to see you in the next one. I hope you got something out of this. And I'm going to see you soon. Bye!